O Pioneers, Chapter 2, Part 2. "Daughter," he called feebly, "daughter." He heard her quick step and saw her tall figure appear in the doorway with the light of the lamp behind her. He felt her youth and strength, how easily she moved and stooped and lifted. But he would not have had it again if he could, not he. He knew the end too well to wish to begin again. He knew where it all went to, what it all became. His daughter came and lifted him up on his pillows. She called him by an old Swedish name that she used to call him when she was little, and took his dinner to him in the shipyard. "Tell the boys to come here, daughter. I want to speak to them." "They are feeding the horses, father. They have just come back from the Blue. Shall I call them?" He sighed. No, wait until they come in, Alexandra. You will have to do the best you can for your brothers. Everything will come on you." "I will do all I can, father." "Don't let them get discouraged and go off like Uncle Otto. I want them to keep the land." "We will, father. We will never lose the land." There was a sound of heavy feet in the kitchen. Alexandra went to the door and beckoned to her brothers, two strapping boys of 17 and 19. They came in and stood at the foot of the bed. Their father looked at them searchingly, though it was too dark to see their faces. They were just the same boys, he told himself. He had not been mistaken in them. The square head and heavy shoulders belonged to Oscar, the elder. The younger boy was quicker, but vacillating. "Boys," said the father wearily, "I want you to keep the land together and to be guided by your sister. I have talked to her since I have been sick, and she knows all my wishes. I want no quarrels among my children, and so long as there is one house, there must be one head. Alexandra is the oldest, and she knows my wishes. She will do the best she can. If she makes mistakes, she will not make so many as I have made. When you marry and want a house of your own, the land will be divided fairly according to the courts. But for the next few years, you will have it hard, and you must all keep together. Alexandra will manage the best she can." Oscar, who was usually the last to speak, replied, because he was the older, "Yes, father, it would be so anyway without your speaking. We will all work the place together. And you will be guided by your sister, boys, and be good brothers to her and good sons to your mother. That is good. And Alexandra must not work in the fields any more. There is no necessity now. Hire a man when you need help. She can make much more with her eggs and butter than the wages of a man. It was one of my mistakes that I did not find that out sooner. Try to break a little more of the land and always put up more hay than you need. Don't grudge your mother a little time for plowing her garden and setting out fruit trees, even if it comes in a busy season. She has been a good mother to you, and she has always missed the old country." When they went back to the kitchen, the boys sat down silently at the table. Throughout the meal, they looked down at their plates and did not lift their red eyes. They did not eat much, although they had been working in the cold all day, and there was a rabbit stewed in gravy for supper and prune pies. John Bergson had married beneath him, but he had married a good housewife. Mrs. Bergson was a fair-skinned, corpulent woman, heavy and placid like her son Oscar, but there was something comfortable about her. Perhaps it was her own love of comfort. For 11 years she had worthily striven to maintain some semblance of household order amid conditions that made order very difficult. Habit was very strong with Mrs. Bergson, and her unremitting efforts to repeat the routine of her old life among new surroundings had done a great deal to keep the family from disintegrating morally and getting careless in their ways. The Bergsons had a log house, for instance, only because Mrs. Bergson would not live in a sod house. She missed the fish diet of her own country, and twice every summer she sent the boys to the river 20 miles to the southward to fish for channel cat. When the children were little, she used to load them all into the wagon, the baby in its crib, and go fishing herself. Alexandra often said that if her mother were cast upon a desert island, she would thank God for her deliverance, make a garden, and find something to preserve. Preserving was almost a mania with Mrs. Bergson. Stout as she was, she roamed the scrubby banks of Norway Creek looking for fox grapes and goose plums, like a wild creature in search of prey. She made a yellow jam of the insipid ground cherries that grew on the prairie, flavoring it with lemon peel, and she made a sticky, dark conserve of garden tomatoes. She had experimented even with the rank buffalo pea, and she could not see a fine bronze cluster of them without shaking her head and murmuring, "What a pity." When there was nothing more to preserve, she began to pickle. The amount of sugar she used in these processes was sometimes a serious drain upon the family resources. She was a good mother, but she was glad when her children were old enough not to be in her way in the kitchen. She had never quite forgiven John Bergson for bringing her to the end of the earth, but now that she was there, she wanted to be let alone to reconstruct her old life insofar as that was possible. She could still take some comfort in the world if she had bacon in the cave, glass jars on the shelves, and sheets in the press. She disapproved of all her neighbors because of their slovenly housekeeping, and the women thought her very proud. Once, when Mrs. Bergson, on her way to Norway Creek, stopped to see old Mrs. Lee, the old woman hid in the haymow for fear Mrs. Bergson would catch her bare foot.